You're listening to WCOM LP 103.5 FM Carborough and Chapel Hill. It's a Tuesday, it's 5 o'clock, and that only means one thing. It's time for another round of Snarky Faith with your host, Stuart Deloney. This is a space where we irreverently wrestle through life, culture, and spirituality, all with our heads in the clouds, our tongues in our cheeks, our hearts in our sleeves, and our feet on the ground. At Snarky Faith, the questions or even the answers are never the point. It's all about the conversation. So here's your host, Stuart Deloney.
I mean, you're right. He's got numbers no one has ever seen. Oh, I love the Trump virus numbers when we talk about them. And I like, hey guys, sorry, I'm already ranting as we start the show. So hey, welcome again to another round of Snarky Faith Radio. And we're starting our show with a big womp womp from the president who's whining. Why doesn't everyone love me like they do Anthony Fauci? Oh, American polls. Oh, daddy love me. Oh. Well, you know what? I don't have any sympathy for a guy who had said this. Can you believe it? This?
Nasty, snarky faith.
That's right, boys and girls. This is the show. Nasty, snarky faith. I don't know. Like, should we add nasty to the beginning? Like, ooh, nasty, snarky faith. All right. Well, enough of that frivolity. We've got plenty of other frivolity to frivol into. So, yes, welcome again, Snarky Faith. We're here for another week. I hope everyone is doing well and surviving life in pandemic. Hopefully there's other people out there. I barely leave home anymore. I don't know. Are you there? Can you hear me? Well, if you are listening to this show and you're a first-time listener, so first of all, I'm going to try to tell you what you're in for here. So Snarky Faith is a show where we don't take things always completely very seriously. Actually, wait, no, that's not true. We take things very seriously, but we have decided here on the show the best way to handle it is basically just through using copious amounts of
sarcasm.
Because I believe the art of being snarky is a spiritual gift. At least I would say a spiritual gift in these days and times. It's a coping mechanism. It's the Holy Spirit. Maybe, maybe not. You can decide after we blaze through the show today. So speaking about this show, you can catch this broadcast and every other podcast at www.snarkyfaith.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. iHeartRadio, sure. iTunes, sure. We're even in India now, I've been told. Interestingly enough. So if you're an Indian listening to us, hey, how's it going? If you're in Indiana, why haven't you been listening until this point? Seriously, you're middle America. Nothing's new there. This show's not new. What's wrong with you? But hey, India, how's it going? We're happy to have you here. And if you like this show, if you want to be part of the conversation that we are having here, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. This is just kind of like the house cleaning that we have. Hey, join our conversations that we have going on Facebook over at Snarky Faith, facebook.com/Snarky Faith. You can find us. We also have Facebook, Twitter. If you want to write back to me, because I write back to you, whether it's good or bad. I even love the haters. Questions at snarkyfaith.com. You'll talk directly to me, your host, Stuart Deloney there. It's just that easy. And also, we've had something that it's really, I'm going to say it's my fault. I'm admitting fault here. We have a Snarky Hotline that 90% of the time forget to mention on this show, but I'm working on it. I'm working on getting better. So yes, the Snarky Hotline. Okay? You can call, leave a message. It'll most likely end up on the air. As long as it's just not really that disgusting. I really just set the bar very low. If you have anything you want to add, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have anything crazy or not, too, throw it in there. leave us a call. 919-525-1570, the Snarky Hotline. It's there for you as much as voicemail is there for you. And if you've been listening to the show for any period of time and even remotely enjoy it, head on over to iTunes and give us a rating. Come on. We've got mainly good ratings, and then you've got Trumpy people, which actually, I'm not sad when I get a bad rating from those guys. I'm always just kind of like, well done, Stuart. Well done, good and faithful servant. I like to pat myself on the back and self-soothe. All right. Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm in a weird mood today as we're beginning of the show. But that's all right. So let me go ahead and give you a snapshot of where we're going on the show. As most of you know, or should know, because if you don't know this, shame on you. Shame on you. That my spirit animal is a narwhal. My spirit guide, of course, is obviously Steve Gutenberg. There's no other even close. And then lastly, Mother Earth to me is Oprah Winfrey. I mean, that was obvious, right? Obvious. Obviously, I'm really just searching for a long segue to get us to talking about Mother Oprah and her book club, because if Oprah can have a book club, why can't I? I mean, really, why can't I have a book club, right? So that long segue was essentially, yes, we're going to be talking about some interesting new books that are coming out from Daniel Akers, John Hendricks, and we're going to be talking to the naked pastor David Hayward about his new book as well, right? Book club! Come on. We can be girlfriends now. Can't we? Come on. That's really sexist. I'm sorry. I've let down the spirit of Oprah. I'll admit I do know a few men that do know how to read. So if you're looking to see what happens in the show, here it goes. Christian crazy, as always. I'll explain that in a moment. Then we're going to have some snarky advice. And then lastly, the Snarky Book Club. So, you know what that says? Because we got to get to it if you want to hear the thing about the book. So, all right. For those that are new to the show, we have an opening segment we love to do called The Christian Crazy that highlights the insanity within Christianity, because Christianity doesn't have to be insane. It is just in the hands of many crazy people. We do this simply because none of this crap has to do with Jesus, and it's really fun to point it out and mock it. You could call it the work of a prophet, or just someone who's too snarky and
sarcasm
to care. Here we go.
Lord have mercy. The Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want.
So, kicking off the Christian Crazy, anyone want to hear what it sounds like to hear a pastor become an utter man baby? Now, when I say become an utter man baby, that's actually generous, because I think he kind of exists in the state of man baby most of the time. So, hey, Pastor Greg Locke, do you know how to put the nutter in the butter? Oh, you're in the Christian Crazy, son. You know how to, son. Bring it. He becomes an utter man baby bitch over wearing a mask. You want to see a grown man lose it over having to put a piece of cloth over his face?
I'm not bowing down. I am not in compliance. I am in utter defiance of this. Listen, I'll go to jail over this situation. It is the golden calf. I'm sick of Christians saying things like this. Well, it's just a mask. You know what they used to say? Oh, it's just a baby. It's just a zygote. It's just a growth in the mother's womb. So let's kill it. No, it's not just a mask. It's a compliance device. This is not about safety. This is about surrendering of our rights. Can I remind you, this is still the United States of America. This is not communism.
Oh, Pastor Karen is showing off his mangina here for the world to see, cause, oh, Jesus don't want me to wear a mask over my mouth hole, cause it might slow me down from spewing hate nonsense, and no one wants that. No one wants a speed bump on my mouth. Oh, such a crazy place we find ourselves in today, because we move here from roid rage to lizard people. In the pulpit, maybe? I don't know. Anyone else have a better thing? I'm pretty sure Robert Jefferson is some sort of amphibian. I'm not sure, but as you hear him talk, you're kind of like, yeah, I don't think he's warm-blooded. Either way, here he is talking with sentient bag of flesh, Lou Dobbs, about evangelicals and voting?
Pastor, great to have you with us. And your thoughts about, well, apparently the Biden campaign has noticed there's some religious folks in this country. And so with 96 days to go, they want to kind of pull them all together for China Joe Biden.
Well, let me cut to the chase here, Lou. There's not a snowball's chance in hell's chance of Joe Biden gaining any significant evangelical vote at all. And the reason is this. The only evangelicals who are going to vote for Joe Biden are those who have sold their soul to the devil.
So, if we're not with Trump, then we've sold our souls to the devil? Does everyone hear this? Oh, no! I have not sold my soul to Trump. So that means I must have sold my soul somewhere. Because that's the kind of wager that we're in. One must have sold his soul to something. What are we, in the 1700s? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Robert Jeffress, I feel like Robert Jeffress is a person that is kind of tried to like embody and walk out like Christian antebellum cosplay. Now, I don't know that these types of books exist, but if they did, I really think that Jeffress would be a beautiful Southern belle in the midst of this. And I just love how anything that has anything to push back against Trump.
Could it be Satan?
It always is. Satan? That's usually just the defense to everything from the religious right if it doesn't make sense with us and we don't want to explain it. Satan. Satan, Satan, Satan. I mean, it's worked for this long. Should keep going forward. And lastly, you ask me, what's the craziest thing you've heard all week, Stuart? Ho-ho! I'm going to give it to you. I'm not even going to explain it, because I'm going to let this be the end of the Christian Crazy. So go, Rick Wiles of True News, go!
Once you go down that road that you support killing babies and you support same-sex marriage and you start going down that line of rebellion, you're capable of doing anything. There are no limits of what you would do.
You're exactly right.
So why do we rule out the idea that they would conspire with China to destroy the American economy? That's exactly what I believe that they did.
That's right. The Democrats made the coronavirus with China. Cool. Next. Lots of new today. I'm going to go ahead and call it Snarky Advice. So just a reminder, if you need some advice, life advice, theological advice, pretty much any kind of advice that's not financial or legal, come here to Snarky Faith, 919-525-1570, or questions@snarkyfaith.com. I want to talk about your issues here. And I wanted to start off in this news segment by kind of debriefing through another article that I found here from the Thought Catalog. This came across my news feed somehow. And it's an article called Let It Go and Let God Take Control by Francesca Corputz. Or Corputz. I don't know. So, this is a wonderful article with a lot of bad advice on listening to God. And I figured we should listen to this advice and kind of pick apart what we can live with, okay? All right, Francesca says this. We all go through tough situations. It's a given. Our world isn't perfect, and there will always be conflicts and struggles as we go through life. There's a lot of problems floating around us. Some of us lose our jobs. Some of us has our hearts broken. And some may feel stuck in our routine, feel stagnant, and so on. Life comes with storms. But here's what I want you to know. Losing that job might seem as if it's a door that was shut in your face. But remember, when God closes a door, it's because he has an opening, another one, a bigger opportunity, greater blessing that will give you the best outcome. Losing that relationship might have left you shattered, but I hope you don't blame God for taking it away from you. He takes things away not to punish you. Sometimes it could be simply a protection. Perhaps it's just randomness, and God has nothing at all to do with any of this. Oops, I should have said end quote from the article. Because these things like this tend to drive me insane. And so though no one is asking me advice in this article giving people advice, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you know what? Sometimes stuff doesn't work out the way you want it to in life. And that's just life. Maybe you didn't try hard enough. Maybe you weren't privileged enough. I don't know. Life sucks a lot of the time. Just telling you the real advice here. And the less we tend to attribute randomness to God, the healthier we will be. If you didn't get that job, maybe it's because someone was more qualified than you. Maybe it's not just that God was protecting you from a bad decision. Or maybe you didn't want to work at that place. I have no idea. But when we start using God to assign meaning to the little, dumb, weird nuances of our life, we might as well be using a magic 8-ball. Sometimes life doesn't happen because other people are a-holes. Sometimes things don't work out because life sucks. So life is hard, and we need each other, and we need hope. So I'm not trying to steal your hope here. I'm just trying to say is that thoughts like this and articles like this from the thought catalog are absolute BS. Because when we spend time trying to attribute everything that has disappointed us or not gone our way, and say, hey, guess what, Tiger? God's going to fix it. That's a problem because sometimes God doesn't fix it. Sometimes things don't end up the way you want them to. And you know what? That's okay. And I think in times like this, when things don't help us, when things don't go our way, let's not try to either blame or attribute them to God and try to ascribe false meaning to those situations. Let's just try to say, well, life is hard. I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying to move in a positive direction to make the world around me and myself a better person. That would be healthy advice. But telling people falsely, because something happened that you didn't want it to, that's God. Shut a door because he's opening a bigger one. Maybe you didn't win the lottery. Guess what? Bigger door opening for you momentarily. Bigger door than opening and winning the lottery. So yay. Okay, so you may have not gotten that job you want, and guess what? Right around the corner, there's going to be, okay, just. This is where Christianity and people go askew. And this is my advice to you out there, all of you out there. I do believe that God is a God of love, that God is a God of grace, and that God moves in this world and is at work still today. But I also believe God gave us brains. God gave us hands and feet, and God gave us communities around us and people that can help us. And I really just believe that when it comes to these situations, we're really just required to do the best we can do in whatever situation that we're in. And if it doesn't work out, you know what? You did your best. You did your best. Because for us to ascribe anything else to that ends up being sadistic. Maybe you did your best. And maybe your best wasn't enough in that situation. Does God have something better for you? I don't know. But I really just think as a human, you just keep going and trying to step into a better position to better yourself and to better those around you. So let's leave God out of the meaningless minutia because it's not really helpful and ends up making us more delusional and susceptible to things like needless folly and manipulation through various different kinds of religious leaders and or writers. Ho-ho! Next. Well, welcome to the first Snarky Faith Book Club. Well, we're going to be talking about some interesting books that I've recently read that I have really enjoyed and wanted to be able to recommend for people that are looking for interesting reads. And the third, we're going to sit down with author and artist, the Naked Pastor David Hayward, and talk about his new book, Till Doubt Do Us Part, When Changing Beliefs Change Your Marriage. But the first book I want to dive into is actually somewhat of a children's book, even though I would say I don't know. I think this is something that is going to be very interesting to many different people. The book is called Holy Troublemakers and Unconventional Saints by Danine Akers. And the book is described like this. Holy troublemakers and inconvenient saints tell stories of people of faith working for more love and justice in their corners of the world, even when it means rocking the religious boat. With original portraits from more than 24 artists and engaging profiles from people of different faiths, different eras, these stories are ones that inspire, educate, challenge, and encourage. And I was initially, when I heard this, and I'm going to give you a little bit of like just prying into kind of my psyche for this. When I heard a book for not really necessarily little children, but this is a book for probably grade school age kids and middle school age kids. But actually, my high school daughter's been reading it and enjoying it too, just because of the easy way that it's written and the new stories and the new saints that she has been exposed to. And I was attracted to buying this book because I continue to try to look down the trail a ways. I'm an old man. I'm 42. But I also know I've still got middle school, high school, and almost college kids in my house, so that being a grandparent is off in the future. And one thing I would want to do for my grandchildren would want to be to educate them of stories that people that made differences in their time, in their space, in their communities. And what I've loved reading through this book, I've been reading through like different chapters of this to my kids because it's really kind of just written as an anthology series. I've loved the people that it's exposed me to, but I've also loved how it's reminded me of folks that have also been part of my journey as well. And speaking in that regard of people that have been part of my journey, I was going to give you just a little snippet when they talked about someone that I have loved through text that has benefited me in my path of asking questions and wrestling with my faith. One of their saints in this book would be Rachel Held Evans. And I was going to read a little snippet from that because I just wanted to kind of display to you all just the interesting and simple beauty of being able to tell stories to inspire the next generation. So there's a chapter on Rachel Held Evans, and it begins like this. On a hot summer night in 1991, a 10-year-old girl lies in bed trying to get to sleep. Everyone else in the house is already sleeping. But for young Rachel Held Evans, nighttime is often miserable. She has a skin allergy condition called eczema, which means she often has patches of red, itchy skin on her body. At night, she has nothing else to distract her, and the itching and stinging feels so intense she can't relax or fall asleep. Often eczema sores ooze drops of blood, making her skin even more uncomfortable, and her bed sheets a mess. Daytime brings its own challenges. Rachel feels different from other kids. Often she can't participate in PE class due to her rashes. The ones on her back of her knees especially bother her if she gets sweaty. But nighttime is the worst. Some nights her parents make her take a bath in vinegar because the doctor said it's supposed to help. But Rachel is left with the overwhelming smell of vinegar all over her body that turns her stomach. "Hey, sweetie," Rachel's dad gently calls her as he opens the bedroom door. "I got up and heard you were still awake. Are you okay?" Rachel melts into tears as her father comes over and kneels beside her bed. He strokes her cheek and her hair. "I hate the smell," she says through her tears. And the vinegar didn't help. It still hurts everywhere. Her father sighs and holds her while she cries. "I'm so sorry, honey." "Dad, why did Jesus let this happen to me?" There it was. That was a big question that had been turning over and over in Rachel's mind at night as her body itched and burned and refused to fall asleep. Her body ached. Her mind wrestled with the basic idea of how could a good God let this happen to a small child. And Rachel grew up in Alabama and Tennessee, in the Bible Belt of the U.S. This nickname refers to the many churches in the region and the fact that most people identify as Christian. Rachel's parents taught her that God loved her and cared about her. Everything about God was good, but Rachel had been struggling to reconcile the idea of a good and loving God with her daily pain and misery. And if God was so powerful and good, why did she have such terrible eczema? "Rachel, I don't know," her dad said, "but I do know that God loves you." This answer stunned Rachel. Her father didn't know. Rachel thought her dad knew everything. Everything there was to know about God. Rachel's father was a pastor and a religious teacher. He'd studied for many years at seminary and at school where people study ideas about God, learned the languages of the Bible was originally written in, and trained to be pastors and religious teachers. Looking back at this night, when she was 10 years old, struggling with both her physical pain and her complicated ideas about God, Rachel later saw her father's answer as a beautiful gift. He helped her learn that it's okay to question God. It's okay to say, "I don't know." And that's only part of the chapter that they have here on Rachel Held Evans and many other different beautiful saints of love and grace and justice of a variety of faiths. And I love this book because I wanted this to be something that I could read and discuss with the next generations of kids that I know that I will at some point be involved with in life. So again, this one, Holy Troublemakers and Unconventional Saints by Daneen Akers. And you can find that on Amazon and anywhere else books are sold. Now, this next book is going to be something that's probably also not in your wheelhouse of reading books. But I enjoy reading, but I also enjoy art. So as an adult, even though some of you may say it makes me sound like a child, I enjoy reading graphic novels. I am a huge fan of Neil Gaiman. So if anyone out there's a graphic novel reader, Neil Gaiman is amazing. And good and well done graphic novels and storytelling usually is some sort of a combination of visuals and also compelling story. And that's what led me to want to read this one. Now, this book is called The Faithful Spy, a true story, Dietrich Bonhoeffer and the Plot to Kill Hitler by John Hendricks. And you've already heard me talk about this. That I know that Bonhoeffer was one of those formative voices that has really changed the way, has really changed the way that I view faith and community and how to walk that out. And I had bought this again as something that I thought would be really interesting for my kids to read, because again, it's not a work of fiction. This is very much a graphic novel that is based on history, and it goes by date, but it tells the compelling life story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And I love the story that they paint here. And I do believe that the way that John Hendricks tells the story is something that it speaks to its timeless nature of Bonhoeffer's journey, his work and his voice, speaking out against really Nazism and how the church had folded and rolled over to Nazism of their time. so it speaks to the historical account of it, but it also speaks to the history of where we are at now, the history of tyranny, the history of authoritarianism. And in many ways, this has been a story that I feel like that continues to speak well where we are at now. And I will also tell you this, that I have a son that's a freshman in college this year. I have a daughter who's a senior in high school. I have a son who will be a sophomore and a younger daughter who is an 8th grader in middle school. And for my younger kids, finding interesting historical readings, it's not easy to be able to find stuff that they find interesting. But for people that don't always glam onto nonfiction and grab onto wanting to learn about periods of history, I will tell you that this book made a fool of my youngest son. That he enjoyed reading through this, and I'd asked him to do it this summer, and he did it more as a chore. But as he got into it, he started asking me questions. He started talking more about it, and you began to see this like light bulb turn on. It became kind of this wonderful and beautiful story where you begin to see how history can open people's eyes to the present. So, here's a simple taste of A Faithful Spy by John Hendricks. Hitler claimed that his power as Führer was bestowed by God himself, and in this view, he'd been appointed as Germany's savior. So Hitler's leadership was a divine appointment and could not be challenged by anyone without challenging God. Hitler knew he would need German churches to support this claim. Always a cunning manipulator, he wore the mask of a Christian in public. In fact, he hated Christianity and often griped to his inner circle about how much he hated the principles of forgiveness and self-sacrifice. He convinced leaders of the churches that he should be the head of both the German state and the German church. And the Führer created the Reich Church, the official church of the Nazi Party, the true religious authority of Germany. Hitler was working to bring every part of German life under his control, something that he had called the Gleichschaltung. Gleichschaltung, the coordinator of everything to be in line with the Nazi thinking and policies. The great cathedrals of Germany were now wreathed with symbols of swastikas. It was fittingly a broken cross. Hitler would soon break the Christian church itself. And the downtrodden people of Germany adored this triumphant new version of Christianity. No more did they have to pray for their enemies or turn the other cheek. The new church that Hitler created was strong and full of aggressive values. No longer weak, the church would finally be dominant and pure. It was a church that was pledged to the Führer and then to God in that order. And Hitler had rightly predicted that the soft underbelly of the German church would not offer resistance. Does it sound? Sound anything like America and evangelicalism? Anyone? Yeah. And that is just a taste of this march through history here, put together by John Hendricks, which is a beautifully illustrated piece of historical work. And I have enjoyed it, and I believe it is well within that justice-driven spirit and heart of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So if you want to find The Faithful Spy, Dietrich Bonhoeffer and the Plot to Kill Hitler by John Hendricks, you can also find it. Hey, again, here we got a theme. Amazon and everywhere else. You want to find books, right? Yep. Now, as we get to the last part here of our Snarky Book Club, I have invited back onto the show David Hayward. David Hayward is the Naked Pastor. He's been on the show in the past. It's been a little while since we've had David on, and it is good to have him back because David has a new book out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into my conversation I had recently with David, because I think you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it. So here we go. We are sitting down with David Hayward, the Naked Pastor. David, I hadn't even realized David hasn't been on the show since 2018, so it is good to have you back, David.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Now, having you back here, David, I want to talk about the new book you have out, Till Doubt Do Us Part. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people end up knowing you from your cartoons and your work online and your artwork, but they don't always know about, or maybe they may be asking the question, hey, why is the cartoon guy writing a book about deconstruction in marriage? So yeah, why this book? Why now?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on the show, and hi to all your listeners out there. Well, I'll tell you why. I went through deconstruction and nearly lost my marriage because of it. So now I've been a journaler for many years, most of my life, and I documented pretty much everything I was going through. And one of my biggest passions is helping people. So I saw other people going through deconstruction and their marriages blowing up, or their marriages going through the same kind of strain that our marriage went through. And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna write about this. I'm gonna do some cartoons about it, and I'm gonna write about it. And I've been doing that over the past few years. So yeah, COVID baby concept came along, where I thought, I've got enough written in my blog posts and enough cartoons that I could probably put a book together, because I've been contacted by a lot of people who are like, my husband doesn't understand, or my wife doesn't understand, and I feel like I'm losing my marriage, and all this kind of thing. So I now have something to hand to them and say, read this. And so it's pretty cool. That's why I wrote it, to help people who are going through. The subtitle is When Changing Beliefs Change Your Marriage. So that pretty much describes what the book's about.
Yeah. Now, I know this may be very, almost like 101, very simple question for you, but I even want you to talk through just a little bit about how much changing beliefs can change your marriage. Because, oftentimes you'll have people that'll say like, oh, we're always on the same page. We're always good. We're fine in our marriage. And a lot of times an unexamined marriage can lead to problems within this. But especially when you start to diverge in even some of your thought and belief processes, it can wreak havoc. So talk a little into that.
Yeah. Well, I've come to the conclusion, not only from my own marriage and observing my own marriage and the marriage of my friends and marriage of people who've contacted me, compatibility of belief is not the best glue to keep a relationship together. I've come to the conclusion the best glue is love, which expresses itself in mutual respect. And so, Lisa and I, we met when we were just kids, got married really super young, and we've been married now 40 years. But, we were very much on the same page, theologically, spiritually. We never questioned it. It was just, we always just traveled along together, joined at the hip, theologically and spiritually. But then when we got into our 50s, let's say, we started questioning some things, and we started experiencing our own kind of deconstruction. And that's when, it wasn't long after that when I left the ministry in 2010, and we left the church just because of circumstances. And then that's when all hell was unleashed on our relationship. And it took us a couple of years to find our balance again. So, different because different beliefs, like we used to, like Lisa and I, we were in ministry together. We were on the leadership team together. We worked together. We were a team. We were constantly talking together. just assumptions. And then when our beliefs started diverging, then we had to figure out the glue's gone. What we thought that was the glue. And then we realized after a while that wasn't really a worthy glue to keep us together. And we found each other again.
No, I love how you were putting that, the compatibility of beliefs being that kind of a glue in a lot of relationships, especially when I think when we're raised in the church, we're always told that like Jesus is like, it's the three of us in the marriage. We're almost getting married and Jesus is there too. So it almost seems like we're setting ourselves up for trouble to begin with at the beginning of marriages when we're kind of binding Jesus into that glue. Not that Jesus isn't important, but that like what you're mentioning, that really what's grounding that marriage is love. Because otherwise that Jesus rug, once it gets pulled out from under you, and I've gone through this too with my wife, going through deconstruction. It's a difficult thing to be able to question things and pull apart things. We were, this is probably like, it was like 10 years ago. But I remember we were driving home from church in our car, and this became a regular occurrence where my wife and I would totally disagree with what the pastor was saying. And we were frustrated for sitting there for an hour, and then in the car, we would start to kind of yell and scream. Now, we were kind of ignoring the fact that we also had kids in the car behind us. And so they would start to ask us, like, are you guys getting a divorce? What's happening? And we're like, no, we're just so angry. Like, we're so angry with like what we've been sitting through and hearing, and like we were picking it apart. It became almost, I don't know. It was definitely something we had to process with the whole family as well, too. not even just us. Yeah. Yeah.
So I talk about in that in my book too. Actually, I have a chapter called "How to Change in Front of Your Kids," and, because that's one of the things that we had to go through too. Our kids were older; they were young adults by the time. But it was a difficult process. I kind of compare it to this is a lot milder, and it's kind of a not really truly applicable, but let's say, you're in your marriage, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden your spouse decides that they have an ethical issue with killing animals and eating them. And they become a vegan, where you love your steak and your pork chops and your hamburgers and your milk and your cheese. And, but now all of a sudden you've got to adjust. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the house has to adjust to this one person who's become a vegan. Mm-hmm. And, you can argue till you're blue in the face about whether it's right or wrong to eat an animal, and all that. But if you're going to make you having the same diet an important factor in whether you guys are going to stay together or not, then you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. But if you can say, I respect your opinion, but, it goes both ways. You need to respect mine where I am too. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I won't go there. But it's like it gets very difficult when, say, one of the couples decides to start questioning their very fundamental beliefs that never have been questioned your whole marriage. Mm-hmm. I remember Lisa and I too, we were driving in a car, and Lisa said, "Do you pray?" And I remember just feeling all the feelings. Like I was frustrated. I felt cornered. I felt totally unprepared and unable to answer that question. I felt a little bit defensive. Mm-hmm. And I felt also that I had to provide some kind of a sound response in order to comfort her somehow. So it's just really, really complicated when you go through these. So that's why I wrote about it. I wanted to warn marriages, people who are married, what might happen, or I wanted to give some guidance to people who are going through it and some comfort. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So for people that are listening too, that are interested in this book, and I believe like a lot of us, especially that have gone through deconstruction, it's a very healthy process, and it's a very healthy book to be able to go through. Right. But when we look at this, like what do you think? What keeps us from getting help? In those positions, because we'll be like, I can just do it on my own, I'm fine. But what keeps us there?
I did a whole video just the other day directed towards men. Because I'm speaking from my own marriage, my own self, and the guy friends that I have, and all of the pastoral counseling of my 30 years of ministry, men are not inclined to seek help for their marriage. Men are not inclined to read a book about relationships. And so I'm like, guys, geez, like you'll invest some money in your Jeep so you can, drive it underwater. You'll invest in a great sound system, or you'll invest in supplements and the gym, and all your friends are like, dude, that's amazing, man. But you won't spend a penny on your marriage. Like, just humble yourself. First of all, you got to be aware that there's a problem. Secondly, you got to humble yourself and admit, I'm not an expert. And third, get help, man. Just go get help. There's experts out there. I wouldn't dare try to fix my car, my engine, right? But there's experts out there who can do it. And it's the same with your marriage. Like, seriously, the book's $15. I'm not trying to sell my book. I don't plan on getting rich from my books. Absolutely not. But it is a great little resource. Just spend $15. I kind of dare men. I dare guys in a relationship. I'm saying, I dare you tonight when you're sitting down with your wife, the kids are in bed. I dare you to say, honey, are we okay? And see what happens. And, if she feels safe enough to be honest, you might get an earful, right? So that's how Lisa and I have done it. That's one of the big things we've invested in our relationship from the very beginning. We went to premarital counseling. We went to counseling and therapy. We went on couples retreats. We went on marriage seminars. We read the book. We got tons of books on relationship and marriage and sex and you name it, right? Because we believe when you invest in something, you're going to get good returns. So say with your marriage, dude, read the book. Get help. And because it pays off, right?
It does.
If you enrich your relationship, everything gets better.
It does. It does. And so for those that are listening that are saying, because I know sometimes when we first start going through that process of deconstruction, a lot of times we do it very quietly. It's kind of like you're like theological porn or something. Like you're trying to you do this. You're kind of like it's a dirty little secret in your mind when you start to question things, and you're like, no, don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. But for those people that are questioning those things, that are in that place, that are kind of like, how would you recommend them begin a conversation with their spouse? Yeah. How would you, if one person begins to, because sometimes the couples don't know they have a problem. And I'm saying is for a person that feels like they are beginning to go through this, how would you recommend them broaching this with their spouse?
Exactly. And I'll tell you, and I tell this story in the book, after I left the ministry, it was in 2010, and I felt great. I thought I felt great. I felt really free. I found a job teaching in a university for a couple of years. And I thought everything was great until Lisa looked at me one day and said, you need help. And it was like, I've come to discover since, and she said, you need help. Like, I'm not fooling around. You need help, or we're in serious trouble. And that's when I got therapy. And I realized one of my defense mechanisms to trauma is to freeze. There's flight or fight, right? But my favorite's freeze, where I just get totally numb and I don't feel anything. But for some people, that feels great, not feeling anything. And so I thought I was doing good, but actually I was frozen. I had a lot of pain. There's a lot of grief, leaving the ministry, leaving the church, losing our friends, having to figure out how to live in the world. And then our marriage, and then there's midlife crisis, and then there's kids, empty nest syndrome, you name it. Oh, we had to file for bankruptcy. Like everything was just a mess, and I needed help. And so that's how I got help. So, and that's why I say one of the first things you need to do is try to be aware of your surroundings. Like don't keep the blinders on. Don't assume everything's okay just because you signed a contract or a marriage license, or just don't assume everything's fine until it's not. Like, just, ask questions. So at the end of each chapter, I have homework, actually. So like questions that you can ask each other or yourself. So So here's an example. What's something your partner believes that you don't, or doesn't believe that you do? Do you respect them anyway? Here's another one. What is the biggest change you've seen in your partner? Have you given them space for that? How about yourself? Have you been given space for change? So these are good questions to ask one another, and ask yourself, and just my hope is that it'll provoke conversation. Yeah, because conversation is sexy.
I think it is. And I mean,
yeah, and between couples, when you connect on a deep level like that, it's really powerful, and it can really change your relationship. Can I just give a disclaimer here?
Sure.
I also deal in the book. There's a few chapters devoted to couples who aren't making it, and maybe won't make it, and don't make it. No judgment. I've seen a lot of my friends' marriages blow up because of deconstruction. Some people realized they weren't really meant to be together. They got married because maybe that was the only way they could legally have sex, or there was a prophetic word, or the pastor told them to, or their parents contrived, or whatever, right? So, or maybe deconstruction has just been so traumatizing that they just can't make it, and they don't. So I have advice for those couples too. So I just wanted to put that in there. The point of this book is not to make your marriage survive no matter what. It's how to navigate through deconstruction as a couple, whether you survive as a couple or not. Yeah.
No, I think that's huge, because that way you're still being, I mean, the whole point of this, and I think the point of us, which is the beauty of what you're getting at is, and the beauty of conversations those are the things that I think make life worth it. If we're not having those deep conversations with someone, if we're not having those deep, thought-provoking conversations about, I feel like with my wife, I feel like a lot of times it's just a continuous conversation. We just kind of hit pause on it a lot of times, and then pick things up as we go. But yeah, I can't imagine a life not examined, because I've been in those places like you're talking about, when you've been numb for time periods, and when you're numb, it is easy to get a lot of work done. I think that I'm a very efficient workaholic when I'm numb, but I also know it begins to kill me. It begins to break me down, and I think that especially a marriage that doesn't have those hard conversations is a marriage that is waiting for problems.
Right. I mean, it's like with Lisa and I. She was missing the connection that we had, and I. Like so many typical men, or I shouldn't say typical, because there really isn't typical anymore, but so many men, they just, we just assume if, we're not beating them up, or, throwing all our money away on gambling, or, whatever, that everything's fine. And I realized that I had lost that connection with my wife, and she'd lost that connection with me, because it's hard, it is hard when you're going through deconstruction to know how to talk. You have to retrain yourself. You kind of have to figure how to relate and how to talk about things. We used to talk a lot about the ministry and the church and the people in the church, and, the leadership team, and how we were going to move forward, and the vision we had, and all this kind of thing. And that was all gone. It was like cleaned off the table. And now we had to figure out, now what do we talk about? How do we connect now? And, but we did learn how to reconnect. Yeah.
Well, David, if people want to buy this book, the best place that I'm at least sending most people to is Amazon. Is that one of yours? Where's the best place to get it? Amazon or where else?
Yeah, Amazon. It's published by Amazon, so Amazon sells it for me. It's also on Kindle if you want to download it.
So that is, yes, Till Death Do Us Part, David Hayward. And David, if people want to...
Not death, doubt.
To death. Yes, thank you. Sorry. It's so ingrained in my head. You're right. Till Doubt Do Us Part. There we go. Till Doubt Do Us Part. David Hayward. Thank you, David. And David, if people are wanting to find you online, to find out more about your work, your art, and anything else, how would you direct them?
NakedPastor.com.
NakedPastor.com.
Yeah, everything's there.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. So much thanks to David Hayward and his book, Till Doubt Do Us Part. The other books we talked about today, Holy Troublemakers and Unconventional States by Daneen Akers, and The Faithful Spy, Dietrich Bonhoeffer and the Plot to Kill Hitler by John Hendricks. So as we end this broadcast here today, just a reminder, you can catch us a podcast at www.snarkyfaith.com. And hey, if you like these shows, you can sign up on our website. And you know what? We'll send you these shows every week in your inbox for free. So thank you for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. I appreciate our listeners. I love all of you out there. I love your feedback. I love what you're doing. And I want to send you out into this week with the holiest amount of grace and snark and peace. And I want you to go out into this world and be holy troublemakers, saints in your own space, in your own community, in your own sphere of influence. I know that we can make a difference and make this world a better place if we just get out there and engage. That's all I got this week. I'll catch you guys again next week.